Hi, Filmatics. Welcome to the show. Today we have a special guest, Adam Kosberg. Adam is an award winning writer, director, and producer. Adam is known for being a producer on the Academy Award winner for the best documentary feature, The Fog of War. Congratulations. And he has been directing for 10 years media for museums, which includes the National September 11th Museum. And currently, he's the head of films for MolQ Entertainment, which is a new film streaming service that will feature some of the best independent films, documentaries, and series. And it'll be launching in the United States and Canada at the end of 2021. Adam, welcome to the show.
Oh, thank you so much for having me, Marilyn. I'm really excited. There's nothing I enjoy more than talking about films. And, I'm missing that sort of theatrical film experience and then being able to speak with films, with my friends afterwards. So this is a real treat.
Oh, yes. It's just a delight to have you. And so, on Filmatics here, we talk about films. So I just want to know, what was one of your favorite films growing up?
Well, I can tell you, and this is probably one of my earliest memories, is actually going to the theater to see Star Trek II, The Wrath of Khan in 1982. And I was only, believe it or not, a few months, I just turned 5 a few months before, and my father took me to see it in the theaters, and I don't know if you've seen it recently, but, there's dead bodies that fall out of the ceiling. And there's that worm, that mind control worm that crawls into Chekhov's ear.
Oh, yeah.
And I don't know what my father was thinking. I guess it was just different times. I don't know, people that weren't as concerned about the psychological effects you might have on your child. I mean, I feel like if I took my son to see this film, he wouldn't sleep for like 3 years. My son's the same age, almost to the month as I was. But, it had this incredible effect on me, and particularly, that the final scene. I guess a little bit of a spoiler alert that you've had almost 40 years. The scene where Spock dies, and I this is so vivid. I remember just being so upset by it. Sitting on my father's lap, facing away from the screen, tears are pouring out of me, and I'm looking at this poor couple behind the next row behind, we thought they were going out for a nice evening at the theater and have to look at this like bawling toddler.
Oh my gosh.
But, that scene, the sacrifice and the pathos, it just right from there, like I just understood the power of cinema. And I've seen it, probably a dozen times, over the years. And, to this day, that scene still affects me. It just imprinted on me. And, when you get older, you sort of build up these emotional walls that kind of cut yourself off from the world and, everything. And that's like one of the only films that really cuts through that for me, still to this day. That and Mr. Holland's Opus. That at the end of that film where he's retiring and you realize, all his former students come and you realize, he was never able to create that symphony, but he was able to, his symphony was the lives that he affected. That always gets me. So Mr. Holland's Opus and Star Trek II, Wrath of Khan are the two films that, always get to me. Otherwise, I'm like a rock. But I love that film because it's just, it's a film about, you learn over the years, about facing and confronting death. And, it's, a Star Trek film, but beyond that, it's really good film, and really well structured and taught and propulsive. And, it just always had this, impact on me. So, and just from there, I kind of really understood the power of cinema and wanted to be in it.
Yeah, I hope that your dad took you to some Disney movie after, like maybe Goonies, to balance out.
Yeah, I just, like I said, I think it was just a different era. People didn't really, they didn't consider, the traumatic, last effects. I mean, I'm thankful he took me now because, I think it kind of really helped me on my, career. But yeah, I mean, it was it was traumatic. And, like I said, I couldn't imagine seeing my son to see it. Like, oh my God, like he would be in nightmares for years. So.
Well, on that subject, Willa, so, I love Criterion movies, as you guys know, and girls. So I just seen, is there one of your favorite Criterion movies that inspired you onto your career path?
Yeah, it's Koyaanisqatsi by Godfrey Reggio, which interestingly also came out in 1982, same as Wrath of Khan. However, I didn't see it for at least 20 years, I have to say, after college. Probably early 2000s was the first time I saw it. And, it's just, it's this visual poem that sort of, explores the sort of disconnections between the natural world and our human-built environment. It's almost, considered almost this kind of early climate change film, really, this kind of cautionary tale that we're on the brink of a disaster, where we're living, quote, life out of balance with nature, which is the meaning of the Hopi meaning of the word. But it's this, has no dialogue. And it's just this film that has this sort of near perfect unity and cohesion between the visuals and the musical score by Philip Glass. And it's just, this film, it's just so hypnotic and mesmerizing with the time lapses and the slow motion. It's just I just think it's the best sort of fusion between score and visuals that you'll ever find. And it's just one of those films that I kind of come back to if I'm ever editing something that just is a visual and musical sequence. It's like I go back to it just for the rhythms of it. And it's also, the type of film that it either can either sort of enhance your senses, whatever you're thinking about, you can kind of bring it to that film. Or you can also just kind of let the visuals and music like just wash over you and just kind of zone out. It's experimental, but it's so entertaining. I mean, I've never known anyone who's just, a lot of people say, oh, that doesn't sound like my cup of tea. And then they see it and they're just like, oh, I get it. This is riveting. And the power of the music. I actually, Philip Glass was actually the composer on The Fog of War.
And I got kidding? Beautiful.
Yeah, he came to our office once. I got to meet him, and he's a real mensch. And a funny story. He and Errol Morris, they went out to this fancy dinner in a fancy restaurant in Boston. We were in Cambridge, where Errol's office is based, and Errol has this sort of uniform he wears like every day. It's a button-down shirt, khakis, and sneakers. 365 days a year, that is what he wears. Doesn't matter the occasion. And I guess I went to this restaurant, and the hostess, Maitre D, said, oh, excuse, sir, we don't permit guests with sneakers. So they laughed, and I guess a guest said, you know who you just kicked out? That was, Philip Glass and Errol Morris. And the hostess sprinted down the street after them, apologizing and, butting them in and comping their dinner.
Oh my
just
God.
so embarrassed. But,
yeah. I worked for some bosses. They were twins and they were multimillionaires, and they wore the same jeans every day. So I'm just like, and you think of like my other podcast is Girls Guide to Investing, that one of the richest people in the world, he drives an old car. So I like how that he just creates and creative. So very interesting stories. I love it. And also, I heard that one of your favorite directors is they're brothers. Can you tell us about your favorite directors?
Yes, the Coen brothers. I hope that's okay. You're not going to make me choose between Joel and Ethan.
No,
if I had to, obviously we go with Joel. We know who's carrying the water. And no. I think of them as kind of, I assume on set, kind of a hive mind. So I count them as one. But, they, for me, I love everything about them. I just love that they, created two of, I think, the best comedies of all time with Raising Arizona and Big Lebowski. And then, of course, some of the best dramas. Fargo, Blood Simple, Barton Fink, Miller's Crossing. It's just, just the way that they can sort of move between sort of intense seriousness and suffering, but also just sort of slapstick and joy. It's just so effortlessly. It's sort of this. It's just they're so identifiable. When you're watching a Coen Brothers film, sometimes I watch a film I'm looking at a film to view on Netflix, and I'm like, well, this looks interesting. And I watch the trailer and I go, oh, I saw this film before, and I totally forgot it. Whether you love it or hate it, you will never forget a Coen Brothers film. Everything, they're so memorable, and there's movies I haven't seen in 20 years, and I can still picture the scenes in my head, so vividly. And it is this incredible characters and story, and like I said, just the way that they can sort of move through different genres and tones, and the beautiful, the point of view shots, so recognizable. It just for me, they had that one little period of time, and where they're doing intolerable cruelty and lady killer, and you're like, oh, have they lost it? And then they come back with No Country for Old Men, and you're like, oh, no.
What a beauty. What a beauty. Oh my gosh. Yes. Wow. And then do you have a favorite film shot that you could share with us?
Yeah, I mean, I almost could point to the entire movie, but I can give a few examples, which is Mad Max Fury Road, the George Miller film, I think 2015, if I'm not mistaken, which for my money is the best shot action film of all time, and one of the best shot films, I think, period. I mean, I don't want to disrespect Die Hard and say it's the best action film, period. Let's just say it's in the discussion. I don't want to go on record as, dissing Die Hard. But it's certainly the best shot action film, period. I mean, I guess it took Miller like 15 or 20 years. There was he did 3,500 storyboards. The crew was almost 2,000 people. Just was 400 hours of footage that was edited down by his editor and wife, Margaret Sixel, won the Academy Award for the best film editing. But it's this film. It's just the most taut, propulsive, kinetic whirlwind of a film you will ever see. And I guess obviously the best known shot, it's also, I find incredible, is that scene where Furiosa, played by Charlize Theron, learns that the green place, the sort of mythical Eden of her youth, was actually the sort of poison swampland that they had just passed through. And she walks out onto the sand dune and removes her prosthetic arm, and then falls to her knees and sort of lets out this primal scream to the heavens. It's all taken in this wide shot, with the sand whipping and this beautiful golden light. And it's just the most powerful shot. But, for me, and again, I can almost point to almost any sequence really though, but the first 5 minutes up until the title card, where Max gets captured, he's brought into this cave, and he's, tattooed, and he's about to be branded. And then he escapes, and there's this incredible chase that's seen through the caves. And where this film, I think, just stands out in terms of the cinematography and the editing, those two really go hand in hand. It's just that, there are incredible number of cuts per minute. There's pushes and pulls and speed ramps and blending and inserts, and you never lose sense of the action of what you're looking at, not even for a moment. And also beyond that, you always understand, I guess, the emotional element or component or motivation of every shot. Emotional intent. It's just whatever point of view you're sharing at that moment, you're sympathizing with that character, and you understand the stakes. And so he's running through this cave, but then they sort of start intercutting sort of him confronting sort of images of this young girl and other characters that he tried to save, but he failed. So he's not just running, quote unquote, from the people chasing him. He's running sort of from his past.
Yeah.
Right. Every scene just has this, as I said, you understand the emotional motivation of it. And no disrespect to, like, say, Paul Greengrass and what he did with, like, the Bourne Supremacy, with all the fast cutting and shaky camera movement. But what John Field did here and Miller on Sixel is, I mean, just infinitely more difficult, in my opinion. And I love Paul Greengrass and his film that preceded Bourne Supremacy. Bloody Sunday is a masterpiece. And I just feel like that technique works a lot better in the context of that film than it did in Bourne Supremacy. Again, still very good film. But, the action here, I mean, it's shot almost a classical way, but, in terms of you always understand it, but there's so many techniques and so much cutting, and yet it's always understandable. This again, like point to that opening scene, and it's a film about, Max, the character, sort of, who's running from his past and haunted by his past. And, his journey in the film is sort of becoming someone who stops running and who commits himself again to helping others rebuild. And it's all set up in the course of this action sequence. And, I know George Miller's doing a sequel called Furiosa. I think it's supposed to come out in a few years. But it's almost hard to imagine that anything could surpass this film. And for him to do it in his 70s, I mean, it just blows my mind. I mean, that's, a point where most people are slowing down. And like George Miller just delivered the best, action film of all time, or right up there.
Yeah. Well, can you tell us then, how you started?
Yeah. I sort of got involved with, making little television skits and films in college. And then after college, I literally moved from Boston to California. I had a friend, and he got me a job as a production assistant on a pilot for a remake of the game show Card Sharks. Not necessarily the most glamorous position, but it got my foot in the door. And from there, the production manager took me with him to be a production coordinator on this. American Film Institute used to do these top 100 movie specials that aired on CBS on their top 100. It was called 100 Years, 100 Thrills. And got me a job on that. I first was a production assistant, then I got promoted to production coordinator during the course of the production on that. And, it's just, again, I was just, learning about production. Really just great to get my foot in my door. But then just, this funniest story. It was my father's girlfriend's interior decorator was friends with the wife of Errol Morris.
Wow.
And through that, got an interview. He was looking for someone to start as a researcher on what was film that would become the Fog of War. And, sort of put that connection and flew out to Boston and, interviewed and got the job. And then, again, over the course of that 4 years, got, promoted to producer on it. But, it was, again, connections are very helpful, I guess, to get your foot in the door. And then it's kind of up to you to, sink or swim and show, your worth and value. And, it's funny. I always say, you can, I didn't stay long in LA, though I did spend another 5 years out there before moving back to New York. But, you can, if you're willing to stick it out in Los Angeles, just through attrition, you can actually have a pretty good career. I feel like if you could commit yourself to staying out to LA for 25 years, like, you end up being ahead of a studio. So many people just, come and go in out of LA, and it's just like, you need to like really have persistence, get your foot in the door, and then be persistent. I think you can typically have a pretty good career, just because so many people bail on it. It's not an easy life. Or can be difficult, and sort of having a break, but, really just need to be persistent, as I said.
Yeah, and I just want to let the audience know that you interviewed Bill Clinton for your September 11th museum. So congratulations. How was that? That was an amazing interview for you.
Thanks. Yeah. Actually, I ended up interviewing him twice. Also for the work I was doing for the Dwight D. Eisenhower Presidential Memorial. But the first time, I was interviewing him, and we were scheduled to do it. He was giving some lecture at the Waldorf Astoria, or some conference there. So, we were told, okay, you have to, get in at 10 a.m. You're gonna be on a secure floor, and once you're on the floor, you're gonna be cleared by the Secret Service, and then you can't leave. And when he has availability, he's gonna come in, but we don't really know when. So we got in at 10 a.m., set up the shot, and I did over 100 of these interviews for this one exhibit for the 9/11 Museum, and so this was one of the last because we had tried to schedule it for years. And so at this point, I'd set up like 25 of these shoots, so I could do them with my eyes closed. And typically, if it's just on a black background, there was a teleprompter, but it was just like I could do it when you first started out 2 hours, like maybe 45 minutes max. So set up and ready to shoot by like 10:45 a.m. And we didn't know when he was coming, so we just had to sit there. And when we were told you only had 20 minutes, that's it. So I literally spent equivalent, I think it was like 7 hours of just going through all the questions in my head. And if he said this, I'm going to ask this. And if he says this, I'm going to say this. All the, that sort of branching question tree. And I just completely psyched myself out. I wasn't like that nervous when I started, but at the end of, waiting for 7 hours, I just was like, I was a wreck. I was just like, I'm going to freeze. I'm going to blow this. And all of a sudden he came, no warning. All of a sudden, Secret Service, door open, he's in the chair. So, I knew we were really tight. So I, decided, we had to do quick lighting adjustments, and I gave a little introduction. And first thing he says to me is, "Oh, you worked on the Fog of War, right?" I was like, "Yeah." And he's like, "That's one of my favorite films. Robert McNamara wrote me this really nice letter when I, became president. That's included in my biography, and that's wonderful." And he completely disarmed me, and he took the time. I'm sure he had some advanced team, give him a little information who's interviewing him, but it just completely, put me at ease. And I've interviewed a lot of other politicians, and some of them are some of the worst interviews you'll ever do, because you can ask them 500 different questions and they will funnel that question into 5 or 6 of their stock answers. They will find a way. And he's just one of these people who really thinks about what he's going to say. And he also his answers are just in paragraph form, like he comes up with what he wants to say and then he speaks it as a paragraph. And it was kind of one of those things I realized that it's like, it doesn't even matter. He's the opposite of most politicians. No matter how bad my question is, he's going to give you a very good answer. So
that's amazing.
It ended up being a great interview. And again, I met him again, and he remembered me, and you just understood. Okay, I understand how you got to be president, just because you have this incredible charm, and also the fact that he must meet 1,000 people a day, but just he all of a sudden he just can personalize, with you're all of a sudden you're best friends right off the bat with him. So.
Oh, great. Yeah. And so, we're recording live from New York. And can you tell us, how COVID is in New York? And I know, can you tell us about your restaurant stories?
Oh, well, I mean, I feel like, there's really nothing good really that has come from COVID in this situation, except, the one thing is that how many new great restaurants that would never have done takeout before are, now committed to takeout. And, there's this really famous restaurant called Peter Luger's, a steakhouse. It's from like the 1880s. It's like 5-6 blocks from my house. Are you there?
Yes.
Oh, sorry. That's 5-6 blocks from my house. And, it's like impossible to get in. There's always lines and waiting. And they did takeout, and they do this burger just for lunch, which they do is they take the unsold steak from the night before and they grind that up, and that's the meat, and it's just melts in your mouth. So it's like one of the few, like I said, benefits of all of this is just like I can now get these incredible meals and just eat them in my home, which is usually how I prefer to eat things anyway. But other than that, I have this incredibly active 5-year-old, and having to spend so much time with him in this tiny New York apartment is it's miserable. It's just I cannot wait until I am vaccinated and we can hopefully kind of go back to at least some semblance of life beforehand. But other than that, I am enjoying the food. So.
Yeah. My mom is in Naples, Italy right now, and they're in the red zone, which is like the bad zone. I go, how is that? Like, you're in a small town. They don't even have a train there anymore because the train moved to stuff like you and all the there's a lot of elderly people there, but they just sit outside their house every day. It's not like they're like jet setting around the world. So it's just and they're crammed in these little places. But people are zooming and they're doing podcasts. And so, if your little boy wants to listen to my podcast, Enchanting Book Readings, and trying to, give the kids something enjoyable to listen to, which is, literally helping families around the world. But I tell people create, talk, make podcasts, talk, and like draw and do your art, and even do little YouTube videos or TikTok videos of dancing, just to get that connectivity. So so I'm like with you. I'm hoping that we have good news and positivity coming up for 2021. And I want to ask you, how has COVID affected your art, with your productions?
Well, I mean, I don't think it's been particularly beneficial in any way. I mean, you do realize both, you do miss sort of the personal connection. There's something from being in the same room with people and ideating that you are missing that just can't be replicated, I think, particularly well, over Zoom. And, the flip side, of course, though, is you do realize that, probably don't need to spend quite as much time, for most people in an office. And that, I think that hopefully the one thing we take away from all of this is that, employers understand that, you can actually have, give employees some flexibility. There's times where everyone needs to be in an office and meeting, and then there's plenty of times where people can be really productive just, staying at home, or, it's nice sometimes to be able to pick my son up from school every day and drop him off. So there's some benefits, to working from home, though I am definitely looking forward to going back to an office, but, with some flexibility, hopefully.
My favorite thing is, and I hope like you guys don't mind me telling you this, if I have an early meeting, on Zoom or Google, I just, I'm basically have my computer next to my bed. So I'm just like, well, can we do it non-video if we can? So no one can see, like, I didn't do my hair or makeup and I'm literally in my bed with a Zoom or Google. So if you had to get ready and go somewhere and drive, then you have to get up like 2 hours earlier. So that has been one of my favorite things, and I'll have to do that 2-hour commute just early.
I don't think I've worn anything other than sweatpants for maybe 5 days since March. It's just that I can't even imagine like just having to wear jeans or anything else. I'm just sweatpants. It just feels good to me. So I might just stick with that, and then I'll maybe get some cool looking sneakers, and that'll just be my look. Try to pass it off as kind of hip and cool, but in reality, I'm just all about leisure wear now. So
And so, can you share before you leave us today about your launching your molecular film streaming service with us?
Yes. So MolQ Films said we'll be launching it's a new streaming service. Really going to feature, as I said, sort of really great independent films and docs series. We'll be launching actually in the second quarter in England, Germany, and Holland. Third quarter in India, and the fourth quarter hopefully in the U.S. and Canada. And we I just feel like there's market for independent films that start being well serviced, and really hoping to appeal to really to film connoisseurs, people who these independent films that are, I guess, somewhat falling through the cracks that we're really going to feature, and it should be something for really your audience that will really enjoy, hopefully the films that we're gonna feature.
Well, thank you so much for being on our show today, Larry.
Adam.
I mean, Adam Kosberg. Sorry.
No problem.
So until next week, everyone, thank you for listening. Thank you so much, Adam Kosberg.
Okay, thank you. Okay, bye-bye.